Hello and welcome to our game on this Thursday live here. First 15 minutes absolutely free. If you want to see the rest of it, go to patreon.com/OurGame. Too much music for you? Bit too real for you, Michael Verney?
A small bit, but boy, Jesus, it'd have you in great form of a Thursday, wouldn't it? It just have you rocking.
It'd have you ready for action, wouldn't it? Throw in the ball and let's go for it.
Oh, hop away, yeah. It's really grown on me, I have to say.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. You've been away for the last couple of episodes. It hasn't gone unnoticed from some of the viewers. Where have you been and what's your problem?
Well, I tell you what, people are always giving out about my haircut and whatever. Well, I met my animated equivalent last week over in Florida, the Bowl Goofy. I might leave this on for the whole show, maybe. No, I was in Florida last week. Had it booked a long time ago. Got it cheap. Right in the height of COVID. Took a chance and worked out pretty well now, to be honest with you.
And was that the Valentine's Day gift that we'd all been wondering about from a few weeks ago?
No, this was booked. This was booked a long time ago. So no Valentine's gift there. I have to say, it was a nice break from the conditions over here. It was about 25 degrees mostly. So beautiful. Now can't complain.
Ideal.
Warm weather training camp. Warm weather pre-season training camp.
So that you can be injured for the season again.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
The comments are flying in. There's been a lot of talk about the hand pass in the last couple of weeks as well while you were away. But I just want to get to some comments first. First of all, Marty Burt, best wishes to Marty Burt, who's laid up at the moment. And no doubt the kids that he's coaching up in Schlockneil are missing him and wishing him well, along with the Derry under-17s and under-20s. So we're all rooting for you there, Marty. Best wishes there. Plenty of other comments coming in on Patreon and on the YouTube channel in the last couple of days. People have lots of thoughts, and a lot of it seems to revolve around the coverage of the Limerick hurlers. And, there's been a few red cards. Obviously, the Keane Lynch one for NUIG completely was not a red card. But then it's the Grode Hegarty one, and then obviously the one from the weekend that Seamus Flanagan got. But I'll just go through some of the comments. Willie Burke started off saying, as far as I can see, there's a concerted effort to do down this Limerick team at every opportunity. It seems to be directed from Tip and to a lesser degree from Cork and Kilkenny. Subtle in ways, blunt and direct by Donlow Cusack, who I think should be replaced ASAP under RT panel. They're no dirtier than any of the chasing pack, who at the moment having the players to beat them when it matters most, and that's not in the league. Limerick are just cruising in the league. They aren't remotely interested, only maybe to hold off relegation. So obviously that's all Willie Burke's opinion, not necessarily ours. Kieran32 says, come April, you'll see a hugely motivated and angry team. Limerick have no interest in winning the league, but the manner of their defeats and people questioning will be huge motivation for them. There's no doubt of the character of these Limerick players, and they'll answer their critics in April. Do you want to just read the last couple of comments there?
Yeah, SSRI just said, hurling is a great place competitive-wise. Any of 6 or 7 counties capable of winning it. When was the last time that happened? The mid-90s, maybe. The mid-90s, maybe. But as regards entertainment, it's just not the same anymore. Games are too controlled, no 50-50 balls. Too perfect, it's suffering. And the last one was Jack Hartnett on Patreon. He just said, I think John Kiely will continue to rotate his squad regardless of results. Whether the squad is good enough or not, they will be needed come championship. Just a couple of points I'd like to make on that. I do not think that Limerick are intentionally disregarding the league. Anything but. Are you telling me that they wanted Cork, they wanted anything but Cork coming to town the other day and producing what they produced? Definitely not in front of a big home crowd. No way. And all the great teams and the most recent ones, the Dublin footballers, probably the Kilkenny hurlers, they'll win every game they can. They'll win every competition they can. So I don't buy that. And I think even John Kiely is surprised at what they're producing and how far off it is maybe what they produced last year. And then part of me is wondering, is it a bit like Kilkenny post 08? Like where they produced this, probably the greatest All-Ireland final performance, maybe barring Limerick's performance last year. And then maybe are they gone a bit over the top? And Kilkenny won in 09, probably holding on, I would say. Not playing well, but holding on against, a Tip team that was really coming. I'm not saying Limerick can't win the All-Ireland. They might well win the All-Ireland, but maybe it'll be a case of more of a struggle maybe than we have seen in recent years. And maybe if they win the All-Ireland this year, maybe they'll win a holding on. Maybe they won't have teams at arm's length. Maybe they'll be the ones that'll have to be coming with, a big barrage in the last 5 or 10 minutes to try and overturn a team. But I definitely wouldn't be disregarding, the fact that they've lost their opening 3 games, and particularly the manner of them, and definitely the manner of of the game last weekend, I definitely wouldn't be disregarding it. And like, you've been with teams no more than I have, Shane. When you can't just go like that and say, we're going to turn on this switch and we're going to get moving. It doesn't really work like that. So I don't buy the fact that they're, totally investing everything in the summer. That's a byproduct of not playing well in the league, and that's nothing that they're doing on purpose. They would love to have been winning those 3 games, and I'm sure they really wanted to win the 3 of them.
And I think they've averaged just 113 per game over 3 games, which when you consider the scoreline that they put up on Cork in last year's All-Ireland final, what they've been doing to teams in general, the 16-point turnaround against Tipperary, I suppose, last year, it really does kind of speak to the fact that this can't just be one of these things that you can turn around quickly, like you said. And I thought it was really interesting, like they're playing Clare away at Cusack Park this weekend. It was very interesting what Niall Moran said this week. He was talking about the chasm in terms of the players that's on the panel that are outside the starters from the 2021 All-Ireland final team. And of course, Peter Casey did his cruciate. Who knows, maybe, I'm not sure how his recovery is going. Maybe we'll see him before the end of the summer if Limerick keep going as we'd expect them to do. I'm not entirely sure on that. But I think he's been a huge loss, because I just wonder who else can play that role of scoring 5 points up one end of the field, but being down on his own 21 and just being such a dynamic player. And probably, like Niall Rigney said of Barry Murphy, was it a 15 tackle a game type of player? Darragh O'Donovan had informed him of that. But Niall Moran, he said, I know John, and this is relating to the Cork game where they took off a lot of their young stars, their upcoming players at half-time against Cork when they were getting hammered. I know John Kiley had to do something. The result was slipping away from them. A part of me would also think that it would have been right to leave them there, leave them sweat it out. The wind was going to be behind their back in the second half. I would have left them there. Ultimately, you probably set them back a good bit by taking them off. If they saw it out, a couple of them might have improved their performance, which is true. Even at halftime, maybe Cork just wind it down a small bit. But at the same time, if you're John Kiley, you're thinking, I have Aaron Gillan, I have Diarmaid Burns, etc. here. I need to get them out on the field because we can't sort of say to people almost, this is okay. If you play like this, we'll just leave you out there anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you probably have to wield the axes somewhat. Like Limerick, it's so hard to get into the Limerick team, right? So when lads get the opportunity, and if they're not doing it for half an hour, you can't just be like, oh, he's played like 5 out of 10, 4 or 5 out of 10 in the first half. We're going to give him another chance in the second half. But then you have the flip side of that, and one of the commenters said that he will need some of these players come championship, 100%. They're going to pick up injuries. They're going to maybe pick up a suspension. These players are going to have to come in at different stages. And it does look at the moment that a lot of these guys that are going to be asked to come in, probably particularly to finish games, and some of them might have to start games if they're missing personnel, their confidence probably will be down. And again, that's something that you can't just flick as well. So there's definitely plenty of things that they need to iron out. And something I wanted to ask you about, Shane, because I know you're involved with the UCD freshers yesterday. You're involved in the backroom team. I think Cian Waldron was manager, and Johnny McGlynn and Carol Coleman are involved as well. But he ran into just a UL side last night that when I read the side on paper, I was thinking, if the weekend was still around in the Fitzgibbon, they'd have a fair chance of getting to the weekend. And that was a fresher team alone. And that included a lot of Limerick young guns that we might see, particularly Cathal O'Neill, Colin Coughlin and Adam English. And just from seeing them close up and trying to stop those players, would you agree with what Niall Moran is saying, that maybe outside of the starting 15, maybe they're not as strong as we think? Or is it only a matter of time before these young guys hit the scene and burst onto it?
If these younger guys continue like their graph of improvement, like Limerick have nothing to worry about in the years to come, because like Cathal O'Neill, the way he gets up and down the field, I'd say his GPS, like what he's producing must be going through the roof. And he can score from pretty much anywhere, even if he's at the full sprint. So he looks like we've already seen him enough. And the fact that he scored 4 from play, I think, against Galway a few weeks ago, that kind of announced to everyone in the country, this lad is ready for senior. I think Colin Coughlin, he must have scored 5 points from play from wing back last night. Now this is an unbelievable UL freshers team. I've never seen anything like it. And you made the point, throw them into the fits, and I think they do pretty well. And I was even kind of chatting with one of their selectors after the game, and I said to him, have you considered entering them into the Liam McCarthy this year? I mean, really and truly, I've never seen anything like it. They're all filled out like adult hurlers. I know someone else was on to me saying that One of the players who came on, I think it was Conor Hegarty, apologies if I have the name wrong, but he scored 3 points for Clare's minors or under 20s last year against Limerick. So, what you're talking about here is serious strength and depth. And, the way they move the ball around, the way they just burst into you, win ruck balls, there was so much about them to be impressed with. And, I'd be shocked if they didn't go on and win the freshers from here. And obviously they won the Fitzgibbon a couple of weeks ago also. Adrian O'Connor, full forward, just a sweet striker of the ball. Adam English, maybe he favours somewhat going on his right-hand side. I mean, he's just as good off his left-hand side, don't get me wrong. But he's maybe that's the whole thing in terms of just having a bit of variety. He seemed to always go to his right, but he had so much time and space. That's nothing to do with our lads with UCD. They all tried their hearts out. It's just one of those days when you're overmatched. You know yourself. And I said this even about Cork in the All-Ireland final last year. One trimming doesn't sort of define you. You can kick on and all that. But, I mean, an unbelievable team. And in a couple of years' time, I think Limerick, and I mean, very quickly, this year, Cathal O'Neill is ready to step up, I think. But in a couple of years' time, when all these guys mature, they're gonna be serious players for Limerick. And they'll obviously need to bring those through because one or two players are hitting 29, 30 in this Limerick team. But I do think Niall Moran has a point in terms of 2022 with Peter Casey out, due to have the obvious kind of backup to step straight in now. Like some of those players that we're just going through, they're players to play some part in 2022 and then see more and more in 2023 and 24 when they really establish themselves. So I do think that Niall Moran has a point, but that doesn't change the fact that they're massive favourites for the All-Ireland final. I suppose that will be reflected in the power rankings that we do in a minute when we start to do a midterm report.
Yeah, just on that as well, I'd be amazed if Peter Casey plays this year for Limerick.
Yeah.
And the cases I'd go back to are probably, like Pádraig Mahony said that when he went back hurling after his cruciate with Ballygunner this year, he felt a mile off the pace. And it was only with games and games and games he got better. I know Tadhg de Búrca said the same. And players at matches in the first couple of games when they're coming back, they would have said they look distinctly average when you come back, because there's a lack of trust in your knee, whether it's going to be mobile or not. And the only way you gain that trust is probably through a run of about 6 to 8 games and staying injury free. Like Peter Casey's not just going to be landed back into the Munster Championship. I just can't see it. I'd be very surprised if he plays this year at all. I hope to see him back on the pitch, but I'd be very surprised if he does. And that means that the Limerick 15 that we always talk about is now 14. And then if you pick up an injury, I'll just give an example. Will O'Donoghue went off early against Galway. Limerick really struggled. Will O'Donoghue didn't start against Cork. They struggled. When he came in, I thought he was one of the ones turning the tide even physically. So I particularly think if they're missing anyone from probably 5 to 12, there will definitely be more headaches. But I definitely think there's a lot for the Chasing Pack to be very optimistic about. And I think they're just looking after themselves. I think Waterford, Cork, Wexford, etc., they're just looking after themselves. And they'll deal with Limerick whenever they have to deal with them. But there's a lot of teams really, really have their house in order so far, without a doubt.
Yeah, so if you want to see the full show today, go to patreon.com/OurGame. Over the course of the year, it works out about 50 cents a podcast. And if you sign up for the entire year in one go, you get 16% off. Connor Mac123 says, people saying it's only the league and Limerick are disregarding it is rubbish. The league, most players chance to nail down and keep their spot in the team. Flash says, could Barry Nash be moved to number 15, put Richie English or Mike Casey into that full back line with Dan Morrissey and Sean Finn? I mean, Richie English and Mike Casey, assuming Mike Casey's 100%, I mean, we haven't really seen him. That's the thing, since he did his cruciate. Barry Nash can play many places. He's played in the forwards like plenty of times over the years, but I don't know, number 15, like he's really established himself in that back line, and you could pretty much plug him in anywhere in the back line and he'd be really good. So I'm not entirely sure on that one. What do you think?
I think it's interesting. I think the Kyle Hayes question is interesting too. Will Limerick have, I'd put it this way, the bits I've seen of Richie English, he looks like he's nearly back to his best, and maybe it would be a waste to have him on the line when you have a really good cornerback to go in. Maybe Barry Nash will be pushed out to wing back. Maybe Kyle Hayes will go back centre forward. Who knows? Yeah. But I do think it's up the pitch where they probably need another option or two. Look at it this way, like Kyle Hayes played centre forward against Clare in 2020, and all of a sudden he was a wing back 2 weeks later against Tip and has been a wing back since. What's to say that he couldn't be switched back up to the forward line, or Barry Nash as well? I think that's going to be interesting. And I'm kind of half surprised it hasn't happened already. If it's going to happen, maybe, but maybe they're keeping a surprise element too. I don't know, but they definitely need more options up top, I'd say, than they have out back. If Mike Casey comes back in as well, there's another guy, another option as well. So I definitely think it's something that they'll be thinking about.
Yeah, Connor Mack 123 says the UL Fresher team were down Waterford senior Mark Fitzgerald also. Yeah, I believe he has a broken jaw. I mean, just an incredible team. Colin Finnan says on OurGame HQ on Twitter, Limerick have only had 3 starters in all their league games, and 2 of those players are unlikely to be starters come the championship. So we'll see how that pans out. We're just going to start the power rankings here, and I'll just bring it up on screen and try and get it full screen. I have a little bit funny there at the moment. But I'll sort that out in a minute.
It's amazing how interesting this has gotten within the space of about a month. Like it really is. There's a lot of big movers even before we start, and just even like before we start, do we need to debate are we going to start at the bottom or the top?
I'd say we'll start at the bottom, will we?
Okay, yeah, we'll start at the bottom. I do think it's worth moving Offaly into the equation here because they're a Division 1 team, and I think it's worth debating then. Who's ahead in terms of Offaly, Westmeath, Laois. We need to put Antrim into the mix as well, who we actually didn't have in this 11. So I think we might need to do a top 13. No, we'll do a top 12 and we'll leave somebody out. Okay?
Yeah. Okay. So look, I've just thrown Offaly in there at the moment. We have seriously disrespected Laois the last day out. So apologies to Antrim fans there. Apologies for that. We definitely got that wrong. By the way, Shane Power says, moving Hayes back to centre forward would be a terrifying proposition for any team to play against. Imagine him running onto a hand pass through the centre. Nobody would stop him. And by the way, there are going to be changes to this Hurling Power Rankings. Now, if you're on Twitter, please go to patreon.com/OurGame. From here on in the show, we're going to be going on Patreon only.